Hello, it's me, your bald boy, back. Bit of a funny announcement, bit of a weird video this one. We are changing the way that Zander operates as a business, if you want to call it that. As of, I say effective immediately, but not in real terms, not really. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be transitioning to a direct-to-consumer business model, so selling directly on our website, in other words. It isn't without a great deal of thought that I have made this decision. It's something I've been contemplating for quite a while, about a year actually. And this is kind of the reason I didn't announce it a bit earlier was I didn't want to seem initially that I actually didn't want to seem like I was jumping on the bandwagon of what Chase Bliss were doing. They made the announcement like 6-7 months ago, I think, something like that, that they were shifting to this kind of model and pulling out of retailers and things like that. So, and obviously not that I'm comparing Zander to Chase Bliss. We're not even in the same stratosphere in terms of size and stuff. But I just didn't want it to seem like I was being, just like following the pack with that. But some of the reasons that I have, I mean, there might be some overlap. I don't know specifically their reasoning for doing it, but I'd imagine that some of the things I'm about to go into are probably some of the same reasons and that factored into their decision to do that. So, yeah, I mean, and again, so before I go into those things, I suppose I should preface this by saying that none of this is a reflection on any of the people that we've dealt with, that have worked with us, that have bought our stuff, in terms of dealers and retailers and distributors and stuff. I mean, this is definitely not a reflection on them. They've been largely wonderful people. There's just been a few things that have kind of, I would say, forced to this decision to be made, and I'll go into them, but I just wanted to clarify that it's nothing to do with the people that took a chance on us and stocked our stuff. So, firstly, I mean, as many of you will know, this isn't something that's specific to Zander or anything like that. The cost of everything is just going through the roof at the moment. From whether it be suppliers, like parts, whether it's utilities, so like just the actual cost of running Zander. A lot of the stuff that we buy is in US dollars, and the pound is fucking awful at the moment, as it has been for quite a while. The UK economy specifically has not been doing particularly well, as you will mostly all know. So yeah, and I basically didn't want to put prices up. Obviously, I think that's an inevitability, to be honest. At some point, that stuff will just naturally have to go up. But for as long as I can, I wanted to kind of hold the price point that we're currently at. And obviously, that's much easier to do when you don't have to give 30-40% to a dealer or a distributor. It allows granted the ever decreasing margins that I do have, to work for a little longer. And again, obviously, let's not be saying like, oh, I'm moaning about giving X percentage of my business away. It's not that at all. Obviously, that's just how it works. The people that stock the stuff, they buy in bulk or whatever, and obviously they've got to make a cut. So I'm not moaning about the way that system works. It's just that when you compound a pandemic with a load of supply shortages, ridiculous inflation, your economy crashing, that all of those factors kind of eat away at the money you were making in those transactions. So that's one, and obviously that's a very obvious one that everyone will be feeling, not only if they run a business but also in their personal life, especially as we're going through winter at the moment. Everyone will be feeling the pinch. So That's an obvious one out of the way. The second reason is that, as many of you will know, Zander isn't a full-time job for me. It's not even a part-time job for me. I work full-time and have been the entire time that I've been running Zander. It was always meant to be just a glorified hobby, basically. And I started a new job relatively recently, which requires me to commute, and I live in the middle of nowhere. We moved in the middle of COVID, and previously my role was near enough 100% remote, so it meant that 5 o'clock rolled around, and if I had stuff to do for Zander, I could shut my laptop and take 6 steps that way into the other room, and I could crack on. I can't do that anymore because it's a 5-hour round commute when I need to go into work, meaning that I'm working a full day and then have a 2.5 hour trip at the end of it. So it's not really possible for me, or viable for me to be, getting in at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and then have the pressure of needing to get out 10, 15 pedals, within the next couple of days for a dealer. I'll just burn out. And the days that I'm not going into the office and weekends and stuff, and evenings, I am keen to spend the free time. When I finish work and I'm working from home, I have a couple of hours with my family, my wife and my daughter, especially, obviously, because she has a bedtime. Maisie can come and sit up here and hang around with me if she wants and watch TikToks or whatever she wants to do. But I don't. That luxury with a 4-year-old daughter is not. It's not the case, because she's in bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock. So on the days I'm going into the office, I don't actually see her. So on the days that I'm not, it's nice to be able to spend time with her, obviously. So that's another reason. It's just gaining a little bit of my time back without having to feel the pressure of needing to put out, get out a big bulk order. Obviously, with individual orders, it's a bit different. There can be a bit of leeway around. It might take a couple of days to make, or the orders aren't. And I'm do like 10, 15, in one hit, a couple at a time or whatever. So that's kind of another reason for it. And lastly, I suppose the kind of final thing is more of my personal kind of anxieties and my stresses dealing with other people. And again, not a reflection on the people that I'm dealing with. It's definitely me. I am a very, I've not hidden away from being very open, even on Zander, on my social media channels and stuff, about my anxieties and my issues, mental health struggles and well-being. And I've always found I think for the first few years of Zander, I was so obsessed with, this is what I need to do. I need to get dealers. I need to do this. I need to build my network. I need to do this, or whatever. I kind of got caught up in that, forgetting that Zander was always actually just meant to be a hobby. I don't need to do Zander. It was actually intended to be a creative outlet for myself. That was a fun thing to do. Obviously, if I was reliant on Zander for income, it would be a bit different, and I would, to a certain extent, have to push myself to do those things. But I don't need to do that, because Zander is just a fun thing. I don't make any money from Zander, to be honest. All I do is whenever I get money from, whenever I make money from sales, all I do is just funnel that money back in to product development, or buying camera equipment, or whatever it might be, which is that product development aspect of it is how we've managed to do things like release the big digital pedals like the Junipero and the Duplo and the Templo, because those things aren't as easy to work on, develop, manufacture. They cost a lot more money than like a fuzz pedal, for example. So that's really my whole kind of attitude to Zander, is just if I make money from it, I just put the money back into the business. And that's allowed me to kind of keep it fun, because I'm not playing with my own money. Obviously, to a certain extent I am at the beginning or whatever, but largely it's at the point now where I can kind of I'm funneling back in money that I've made from Zander back into product development, and the business is just kind of floating, breaking even, if you like. And obviously, there'll come a point where, eventually that dynamic will probably shift. But for the moment, that's kind of that's kind of the way I view it. It's just like a hobby that doesn't cost me anything, and like a fun creative outlet. And I'm a very nervous, anxious person, and I've found having business relationships to be very stressful for a couple of reasons. I think just for my own kind of self-conscious, nervous disposition that I have anyway. And then the other thing is that, like, obviously, odds are eventually, a pedal every now and then will break, or, something will malfunction, or whatever it might be. Customer's not happy with something for whatever reason. And when it's a direct sale, it's much easier mentally for me to deal with that, where I can speaking with the customer directly, and I can say, yeah, send it back, I'll sort it, I'll fix it, whatever needs to be done. A knob's fallen off, or, whatever it might be, I'll sort it out. When it's through a retailer, it kind of triggers my like fight or flight anxiety kind of thing, where I feel like I've let their business down. I feel like I've let the person down. I feel like they're angry with me, and a lot of these, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of these feelings are unwarranted, and they are probably in my own head, and I'm aware of that, but it can't stop me from feeling them. And it goes back to, I don't need to do Zander. It doesn't need to be a part of my life. I started it because I wanted it to be, and it doesn't need to stress me out. I can run it the way I want it to, and selfishly maybe it has to go back to being that thing that I initially set out to do, of just having a fun creative outlet for myself. And then the other kind of aspect of that with working with dealers is that I am painfully aware of how kind of fickle I can be when it comes to releasing variants of pedals and new versions and whatever, making updates and stuff. And it isn't really fair in my mind to however our relationship comes about with the dealer, whether it's them contacting me asking to stock my stuff, or me reaching out to them, or however it comes around. I don't feel like it's fair for me to, they invest in the company in the form of, buying in. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, most of the people I'm working with are small businesses, so they're, we're talking like between like 5 and 20 pedals, maybe, like average on an average order. To be honest, probably on the lower end of that. And again, that's not me being negative. Most of the people I'm working with are small businesses, or they're single man operations like I am. So I get that, and that's never been an issue. But they're nevertheless, like, whether they're buying 5 or 100, they're still investing in me, and they don't have any guarantee around how quickly they're going to be able to sell stuff, or how long my stuff is going to sit on their shelves for. And personally, I have feelings around it. Okay, is it then fair for me in 6 months' time for my stupid, like, manic energy brain to then be like, actually I'm releasing an update to the Cranium or whatever, so the one you've got now is effectively, it's not the new thing anymore. It's not redundant. It's still a usable pedal, but it's not like, it's no longer the new version. So that's a kind of another thing that's been kind of eating away at me for a while, is kind of the guilt around that. And again, whether that's warranted or unwarranted, I don't know. But that's just how I feel. And it's easier for me to manage, again, going back to Zander needing to be a creative outlet, I'm fully aware that, the way that my brain operates, and I, don't want to be one of those people that self-diagnoses themselves, but I'm almost positive it's some form of like ADHD or something along those lines, with just, and maybe it's just part of being a creative person, but I have a kind of very hard sitting still, very hard feeling like I'm not doing anything or that everything's stationary. I'm very kind of jittery, and like I said, I think that feeds into my anxieties. And I have just accepted that is part of who I am, as much as I would like to say that I can change that. And, the pedal will be released, and this is definitely the final version of the Cafetiere or whatever. I know that it won't be. And in a way, I think I need Zander to allow me to direct that kind of anxious, creative, fickle part of my brain that is constantly jumping around and constantly wanting to do something new, because I feel like it allows me to be a little more level-headed and a little bit more organised in other areas of my life. If I have this kind of outlet to focus that crazy, kind of always changing, constantly shifting, dynamic part of my brain into Zander, and I feel like I have purposely withdrawn myself a little bit from feeling like I was able to do that, because I was worried about pissing off dealers that had, bought, 3 or 4 months ago, they might have bought 5 craniums and they've only sold 2 of them. So what are they going to do with the 3 that they've got left? That kind of thing. And that's kind of that's probably one of the main things, on top of the actual cost of doing it. That's probably the main thing, really. It's just feeling like I feel like I need to be able to be the creative person that I am, because I feel like the business would suffer and the products will suffer if I don't feel like I'm allowed to do that. So, excuse me, I shouldn't have drank that Coke before I started recording this. Yeah, that's kind of the final thing, really. So all of those things kind of compounding together, and like I said, I've been considering this for a relatively long time. This isn't coming out of nowhere. What does that mean for consumers? Not a lot, really. It just means that if you're buying a pedal, for the next couple of months, dealers will still have stuff. So if you want a Zander pedal, go and support the dealers that still have stuff. There's a page on the website that has a link to all of the dealers that we've worked with. I'm not sure whether all of them have stuff in stock still. There's loads in the UK. We've got one in Germany, the States, Australia. So please go and support those people. Canada as well, forgetting. Pretty much everywhere. Like, if you want a pedal, you've got a decent chance of getting one where you don't have to buy direct from me immediately. Obviously, over time, that will shift and there will be less and less pedals available at those dealers, and then eventually it will change to just being available with me. And whether that is directly through the website or whether I start up the Reverb store again or however I want to sell them, ultimately you would be buying from me. So from a consumer's point of view, to be honest, I'd imagine that the majority of my sales are probably coming, going on the numbers that I shift directly already versus the number of pedals that I'm selling to dealers. To be honest, I think it's already weighted towards me anyway, in terms of where people are buying the pedals. But obviously eventually it will just be, I'll be the only place that you'll be able to get them. And yeah, what I'm hoping that this allows me to be, like I said, is a little bit more creative and allow me to kind of feed that kind of little critter that is constantly jumping around in the back of my head, and allow me to do things like, make updates and release limited versions and release limited colorways without feeling like I'm undermining the people that I'm working with. Because that's the other thing. I always felt like, I can't do a limited run because, what if the dealers don't want to buy it, and then do I feel like I'm, if people want to get, like, because I've released a cranium in, black or whatever, does it feel like I'm taking away from them? That kind of thing. It will hopefully stop those feelings of stress from eating away at me and allow me to turn Zander into what I wanted it to be. And again, I need to reiterate, this is absolutely nothing to do with the dealers that I've worked with. They're all lovely people. I know them all, most of them, personally. So please, don't ever think that it's anything to do with them. It's not. It's just a decision that I need to make for Zander, to allow it to be the thing that I always intended it to be, which was just a fun hobby. And I'm hoping it means that I can, it feels, just saying it, dealers are already aware, so this won't be news to them. They've already been told. The weight, it feels like it was lifted after I just sent that email to them, that I'd made the decision at that point. And I already feel better about it. And it hopefully means that I can get back to making videos and making content, because I'm aware over the last few months I've been a bit up and down and a bit sporadic with doing that. And I can't blame, I'm not going to blame me not doing that on this subject. There's been other personal things going on as well, but it hasn't helped. So I'm hoping it will allow me to get back to just making creative, fun, interesting content, because ultimately that's really what I enjoy doing. If I'm being honest, I don't really enjoy sitting down and making 10, 15 of the same pedal. I enjoy doing creative, fun videos and stuff like that, and designs and whatever. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, and constantly moving on to the next thing and having another project to work on and all that kind of stuff. So this move will hopefully just allow me to do that without having the worry that I'm upsetting people, or I'm, I've done something to, piss them off or whatever. I don't need that feeling anymore. So yeah, hopefully anyone watching hopefully this is understandable and doesn't seem too kind of crazy or selfish or anything like that. And yeah, you'll see me around hopefully a little bit more frequently, but going forward. And hopefully we can start putting out some nice, creative, fun content, and it will feed the little erratic monster at the back of my brain. And yeah, like I said, if you fancy getting yourself a Zander pedal over the next couple of months, please check dealer websites that we have listed on our website and see if they have what you want. Help them clear out the stuff that they've got left. Who knows, you might even be able to grab a bargain if they put a bit of a discount on it, so you might even be able to get it cheaper than you'd be able to get it from me anyway for the next couple of months. So yeah, that's the announcement. Nothing crazy, but yeah, hopefully you'll see me soon. Cheers.